Before starting, check for any obstructions that might prevent underground cabling. There are fire retaining walls, slopes, or other potential hindrances. Next, thoroughly assess the existing overhead wire. Determine its condition to see if it needs replacement. Clearly define the scope of work with the customer. Understand exactly what they need done, including wiring the garage and fixing any lighting problems. Explore all possible underground options. Even in hilly areas, consider burying a cable. Trenchless methods like directional drilling or horizontal boring could be useful. If overhead wiring is necessary, prioritize safety. Use a sturdy 24-foot ladder, appropriate safety gear, and follow all ladder safety guidelines. Gather all the necessary information to prepare a detailed bid. Include materials, labor, and any potential underground cabling options. Keep the customer informed throughout the entire process. Explain any challenges or recommendations you may have. Ensure all your work complies with the National Electrical Code and any local building codes. Verify that you have adequate insurance and obtain all necessary permits for the job. When you visit the site, take detailed notes to avoid misunderstandings. If possible, take pictures of the existing setup for future reference. Consider using a drone or extension pole to safely inspect the overhead wiring. If you have any questions about code compliance or permitting, contact the building inspector. Provide a written estimate that clearly outlines the scope of work, materials used, and labor costs. When inspecting the overhead wire, maintain a safe distance from any power lines. Look for signs of damage such as fraying, cracking, or exposed wires. Check the condition of the insulators and make sure they are not broken or cracked. Use a voltage tester to ensure that the power is off before you start working on any electrical component. When working with electricity, always wear appropriate personal protective equipment, including safety glasses, gloves, and insulated footwear. Make sure your ladder is placed on a stable and level surface before climbing it. Never lean too far to one side while working on a ladder. If you need to reach something that is too far away, move the ladder instead. If you are not comfortable working with overhead wiring, consider hiring a qualified electrician to do the job. Remember that electricity can be dangerous, so always take precautions to protect yourself and others. When running underground cable, make sure to bury it at the proper depth according to the National Electrical Code. Use a cable locator to avoid hitting any underground utilities such as gas lines, water lines, or other electrical cables. Backfill the trench with sand or gravel to protect the cable from damage. When making electrical connections, use approved connectors and make sure they are properly tightened. Wrap all connections with electrical tape to prevent moisture from entering. Label all circuits clearly so that they can be easily identified in the future. Test all circuits after you have completed the work to make sure they are functioning properly. Provide the customer with a copy of the electrical permit and inspection report. Be sure to answer any questions they may have about the work that you have done. Always follow the National Electrical Code and local building codes when performing electrical work. If you are not sure how to do something, consult with a qualified electrician or electrical inspector. Electricity is a powerful force that should be treated with respect. By following these safety guidelines, you can protect yourself and others from harm. First, carefully examine the point of attachment on the house and the garage. Look for any signs of damage or deterioration, such as rot, cracks, or loose connections. Make sure the attachment points are strong enough to support the weight of the cable. Second, check the clearance of the overhead wire above ground. The National Electrical Code requires a minimum clearance of 10 feet above finished grade, 12 feet above residential driveways, and 18 feet above public streets. If the clearance is not sufficient, you will need to raise the attachment points or use a taller pole. Third, consider the potential for future obstructions, such as trees or buildings. If there are trees nearby, make sure they are trimmed back so that they do not come into contact with the wire. If there are plans to build a new building in the area, make sure the wire will not be in the way. Fourth, evaluate the condition of the existing wiring. Look for signs of damage, such as cracks, fraying, or exposed wires. If the wiring is damaged, it will need to be replaced. Fifth, determine the size of the wire needed to carry the electrical load. The size of the wire will depend on the amount of current it needs to carry and the distance it needs to travel. Consult the National Electrical Code or a qualified electrician to determine the proper wire size. 6. Select the appropriate type of cable for the installation. There are several different types of cable that can be used for overhead wiring, such as triplex, quadruplex, and messenger cable. Choose a cable that is rated for outdoor use and that is suitable for the environmental conditions in your area. 7th, install the cable according to the manufacturer's instructions and the National Electrical Code. Make sure the cable is properly supported and that it is not subject to excessive stress or strain. 8th, make all electrical connections in accordance with the National Electrical Code. Use approved connectors and make sure they are properly tightened. 9th, test the installation to make sure it is working properly. Use a voltage tester to verify that the voltage is correct and that there are no short circuits. 10th, document the installation for future reference. Keep a record of the type of cable used, the wire size, the attachment points, and the test results. This information will be helpful if you ever need to make repairs or modifications to the installation. When exploring underground options, consider the soil conditions. Rocky soil may require more specialized trenching equipment. Investigate the possibility of using conduit to protect the underground cable from damage. Ensure the conduit is buried at the correct depth as per local codes. Research the use of ground rods for proper grounding of the electrical system. Confirm the location of any existing underground utilities before digging. Call 8.11 to locate existing underground utilities. Document all underground cable routes for future reference. When preparing the bid, include a detailed breakdown of all costs. Labor, materials, permits, and equipment rental should all be itemized. Obtain multiple quotes from suppliers to ensure competitive pricing. Add a contingency to the bid to cover unexpected costs or complications. Clearly state the payment terms and schedule in the bid. Get the customer's written approval of the bid before starting work. Communicate regularly with the customer throughout the project to keep them informed of progress. Be prepared to answer any questions or address any concerns they may have. When dealing with the customer, maintain a professional and courteous attitude. Be respectful of their property and their time. Address any complaints or issues promptly and fairly. Strive to build a long-term relationship with the customer based on trust and mutual respect. Offer a warranty on your work to provide the customer with peace of mind. When dealing with the building inspector, be prepared to answer any questions they may have. Provide them with all necessary documentation, such as permits, drawings, and test results. Be courteous and respectful of their authority. Address any concerns they may have promptly and professionally. Establish a good working relationship with the building inspector to ensure smooth and efficient inspections in the future. Before starting any work, notify the utility company of your plans. They may need to disconnect the power to the overhead wire. Coordinate the disconnection and reconnection with the utility company to minimize disruption to the customer. Obtain all necessary permits from the local authorities. This may include electrical permits, building permits, and right-of-way permits. Comply with all permit requirements to avoid fines or delays. Notify the local fire department of your plans if you will be working near any flammable materials. They may need to provide standby fire protection. Coordinate with other contractors working on the property to avoid conflicts or delays. Communicate your plans to the other contractors and work together to ensure a smooth and efficient project. Dispose of all waste materials properly. Recycle any materials that can be recycled. Dispose of hazardous materials in accordance with local regulations. Leave the job site clean and tidy. Remove all debris and sweep the area clean. Ensure that the customer is satisfied with the completed work. Ask them for feedback and address any concerns they may have. Thank them for their business and ask them for referrals. By following these guidelines, you can ensure a successful and profitable electrical project. Remember to prioritize safety, code compliance, and customer satisfaction. Always be professional, courteous, and respectful. Strive to build long-term relationships with your customers, suppliers, and other contractors. Continued learning and training is required to maintain up-to-date knowledge of the NEC. Also, attending continuing education to retain your electrician's license is required.